Before delivering the foundation lecture, I would like to introduce Dr. Vilas Tonapi sir. He is director IIMR Hyderabad. His discipline is seed technology and he joined ICAR in the year 1990. He became head of division of seed technology in 2011 to 2013 and joined as the director of IIMR from 2016 to 2022. And there are many contributions, but major contributions which are going to say seed production of varieties, composites, hybrids, and their parents. Then he majorly contributed in developmental initiatives in seed technology, seed quality assurance, seed policy, and development of sustainable community seed systems. Then farmers' participatory seed production, BUS testing, and seed quality control. He has awarded with many important awards and recognitions, like in the year 2016, he was awarded for significant contributions in seed science and technology and NSP crops. Then in the year 2016, he got Legume Research Editorial Award. In the year 2011, 2 awards, one as Best the Center and one for capacity building in PPP and FR. In the year 2008, he recognized as a consultancy to FAO Rome on seed systems for underdeveloped world. And he also got National Merit Scholarship from Government of India in 1977 to 1985. Then he also got District Merit Scholarship from Government of Karnataka from 1975 to 1977. There are many much more awards and recognitions. I have just mentioned one few of them. And then he has vast experience. He has visited 7 US universities to study crop improvement programs, seed systems, biotechnology, and IPR management. Then he has visited ICAR-RCER, Patan, India. Then postdoc at University of Queensland, Australia, and CRC for tropical plant pathology, Brisbane, Australia. Likewise, there are a long list for that, but I will not mention all this. So with these, I will request Dr. Vilas Tonapi sir for delivering the foundation lecture. Sir, please. Excuse me, sir. Yeah. We would like to welcome our director, Dr. Vikas Das, NRC. Thank you, sir. So please.
Madam, mic.
Good morning, everyone. So it's my privilege to congratulate each one of you on your 23rd Foundation Day, a day which is very, very auspicious for everyone who is part of this great institution, because this institution holds the paramount importance in terms of addressing the Eastern region and many states, many agroecological niches that you need to work about. So while congratulating each one of you, I would like to thank Dr. Anup Das, Honorable Director of this institute. Then also today's chief guest, Dr. Mahapatra, and newly joined Director, Dr. Vikas Das, and each one of you for giving me this opportunity to put the perspectives and the developments that could happen to bring back the heritage crops to food plate. That is the main initiative that is happening. That's why the International Year of Millets 2023. So I'm just trying to put together a story before you, how the Indian efforts could really make difference worldwide, and how initiatives that need to happen at the institute level, not just the research per se, but probably on development, policy aspects, networking with scientists, all the stakeholders, and including the government. So in this story, we are talking about 10 to 11 important crops. They are not new to Bihar or eastern region. They were part of the food systems earlier, whether it is jowar, bajra, ragi, kodo, kutki, samar, china, and brown top millet. So they are all part of our food systems. They were. But as the green revolution happened, probably we did not create markets for these crops, and that's how they went to the backdrop. But now the effort is how can we really bring them in order to diversify our food plate. The problem today is our malnutrition, the zero hunger, what we talk about, energy calorie relations, what we really look at. All have made alternate choices to be looked at, and the COVID made everyone to look at alternate grades that would build the immunity and also the health. So in this particular scenario, when we are talking about these crops, the millet map of India looks like this. Every state has one millet or the other, including Bihar, part of Chhattisgarh, and all these things put together. Now, historically, if we see, all these were part of our food systems since civilizations from 3500 to 3000 BC. And if we really look at the existence of modern cultivation across civilizations, we find Rosso, barnyard, oxtail to be part of our heritage culture. And that's how the food systems were part of it, and they were the first crops to be cultivated and consumed. And always this is a tussle between the consumer, a researcher, a policymaker. What should we bring into the food plate of all? Today, what we are eating is only the things enforced by the government policies. The policies determine what is grown, what is supplied, what is available in the market, and what is in. So consciously, if we think the developments that has happened since Green Revolution, we developed monocultures, and the diversified agriculture gave the way to specific niches where the monocropping systems flourished. So I am quoting here a story in 16th century, wherein whether rice is good or millets are good, because consumer always prefers anything looks white is better. But when you look at the things today, anything that is colored has more polyphenols, more antioxidants, more nutraceuticals. So this was known earlier to the people who consumed before the Green Revolution happened. That's how the people lived longer, because dietary fiber was the basis of their culture. When we see the global scenario, almost more than 700 lakh hectares of area, about more than 800 lakh tons of production that happens from Africa to India. India is the global leader. Our productivities are higher than the world. But if you see the total story that has happened since 50s to 2022, we had an area of 35 to 40 million hectares under millets. Today we have 15 million hectares. We spared 20 million hectares to different crops, but the productivity increased by 2.5 times. 2.5 times. It increased. It shows that the crop improvement efforts contributed to the increase in production and the productivity. This is the similar scenario in case of sorghum. So wherein 30% positive change in terms of productivity could happen. In case of pearl millet and kharif and rabi sorghum put together, the change is towards the 30% positivity in terms of genetic gains. Pearl millet around 8 to 9%. Finger millet again about 10 to 30% depending on the different meshes. So why I'm showing you these particular graphs is to show that they were our dominant crops earlier. From 40 million hectares, we were producing only 16 million tons. Today, I produce from 15 million hectares, 16 million tons. So it means to say that the scientific impact of crop improvement efforts, good agricultural practices have shown that we don't need so much of area to produce our own requirements. So that's how it is very, very important to know how the good agricultural practices and the good variety seeds could play an important role. This particular slide shows we are number one in first 5 crops, and the remaining crops which are grown in many countries, we stand 3rd or 4th. So the entire niche put together, it is the policy around dryland agriculture needs to evolve. That's what the government has done in the last 7 years. Whether it is the pulse revolution, whether it is the oilseed mission now, or the millet mission, it indicates that never before the policies around dryland agriculture happened. But the policies around dryland agriculture is happening now in the last 7 to 8 years. That's how this change and evolve and pitch for the diversification of agriculture. This is one document we developed in the last 8 years, try to reach the PMO. And that's where all the things started changing basically. So mapping of crops, diversification of agriculture, how they can be mainstreamed in the Poshan Abhiyan, public distribution systems, and all these things were put together and submitted to PMO. That's where the moment for calling 2018 or National Year of Millets, then proposal to United Nations General Assembly for declaring International Year of Millets 2023. This is how we really look the millets in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, whether it is zero hunger or sustainable agriculture or the responsible consumption or the climate change. So these are the 6 important aspects we need to be looking at. Why are we talking today about these grains is only to have our preparedness for future. If carbon dioxide levels increase, temperature levels increase, droughts become frequent, dryland agriculture is to be promoted, then what are the other crops we would like to put in? So preparedness is an important aspect, whether it's pulses, the millets, the oil seeds, along with the major crops, rice and wheat. We need to be having the multiple cropping systems that will sustain the climate change scenario. So 7 important themes we try to work around. One is the enhancing production and productivity, which is linked to awareness creation of nutrition and health benefits of millets, then creating value addition, different modern forms of ready to eat, ready to cook foods, then the skill development and the startup ecosystems, then the international outreach and the public intervention. So the networking with all the stakeholders was an important thing that could happen. But the tragedy is per capita consumption of about 3 kilograms per head has declined to less than half a kilo. Then in the urban area, but again in rural areas it is still less. The person who grows, he just sells it, doesn't consume. So that's where the problem of malnutrition has really come into the face, and that's how we need to look at. Again, this is the consumption pattern. This is how we contribute to the world. We produce almost about 40 to 42% of the total global production, which contributes to millets basically. Then in terms of the quantum also, if we see, it is India. And in terms of states, again, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, they contribute more. And Bihar and Chhattisgarh together have a major portion, almost contribute around 12% here. So why the millets basically? So validated medical results show that millets helping people who have celiac allergy, where they cannot digest the protein called as gluten. They have the gluten allergy. Second is their promotion in terms of the anti-diabetic and hypertensive properties because of the complex carbohydrates and the dietary fiber. And the benefits in terms of the obesity reduction because of the high dietary fibers. Then comes the whole range of gut microbiota and all the things which we are working with in the medical institutions, how things can be benefited through alternate grains. That is what is the total basis of awareness creation that is happening. So I am talking about what is the cost in order to have the nutrition built in our food system. It comes to about $160 US per head per hungry person. If we can really push it into our policies, probably the portion of Abhiyan can create an ecosystem for addressing the zero hunger and malnutrition. So if that is the scenario, and if you really look at the spectrum of malnutrition across urban and rural areas, it remains the same. It means to say, see that the monocropping systems really push the people to a beneficial position of food availability, but lack of malnutrition. That's how I think some kind of balancing needs to happen. That's where we need to really look at. And across the countries also, if we see, it is the same. So that is where diversification of agriculture in the light of climate change scenario, looking at alternate grains becomes very, very important. And again, validated things show that the glycemic index with these millets is much, much lower, good for the diabetic and the hypertensive people, wherein it really gives a kind of scenario where the blood glucose sugars and HbA1c get controlled with the consumption of these particular millets. So a lot of programs with doctors, chefs, creating recipes, and all these things have happened over a period of time, and the validated results for all the things what I have shown earlier have happened today. So this is one particular slide shows the composition of nutrition in millets vis-a-vis wheat and rice. So one thing we need to remember, this is not the campaign against any grains. It is the campaign to supplement the emergencies that could happen in future. So rice and wheat you can't replace. They are our basis of life, whether in India or across the globe. But with wheat and rice, can we diversify our food plate? If we diversify our food plate and the agricultural diversification would happen, that is where crop plannings would happen and the policy level changes are going to happen. That is what is the main basis we need to really look at. So different millets in relation to wheat and rice, if we look at from calcium, iron, zinc, protein, fiber, they are all rich in that. But one thing is very, very important, how we can mainstream them. Because changing food habit of people is a very difficult proposition. It takes time, it takes awareness, it takes your habit of eating food. We have totally lost the art of chewing and biting today because fine cereals, when we consume, we just swallow it. If you are asked to chew, bite, and then swallow, it takes double the efforts for you to eat the food. So that is where we are lacking the fiber. We don't have the fiber. That is what is really required for your total support systems, whether it is the bowel movement or better gut microbiota or your total health systems put together. So just trying to show you the crops around the millets, sorghum, which is called as the great millet, then the bajra. These are all known things in this part of the eastern India. Pearl millet, again, the same thing. Finger millet, ragi, what we call about. Then highest in calcium, almost 10 times more calcium than in mother's milk. Then the barnyard millet. I'm not going into the individual details of nutrition. I am leaving the slides. You can share it. Everyone you can look at. China, Sawa, Kodo, Kutki, foxtail millet, little millet, and proso. They are what you call akin to rice. It looks like rice. Then the Kodo. Highest productivity we can observe. I think I was just discussing today with Rakesh, when Dr. Mishra was there. We did some certain trials here. We had highest levels of bajra and sorghum yields to the tune of 5.5 tons. And all other small millets to 2.5 tons on average. So when you take to the better niches, you get around 3.5 to 4 tons. So depending on the situations, probably we need to be ready, develop cropping systems around, probably this eastern region needs to work for. Different states are involved based on the crops that are prevalent in that area. How we can fit these alternate crops in within the cropping system when we diversify agriculture is an important aspect we need to be looking at. So brown top millet basically is a forage, but has highest fiber. Now it is going into the food systems. So there are two exotic millets. One is teff from Ethiopia. They make the injera, what is called as a dosa kind of thing, fermented unleavened bread. That is their staple food. Then the CKI is the Baiga tribal sects in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh region. This is the another thing that we are trying to mainstream. A lot of protein and fiber in it. And that's how. So looking at what we lacked in terms of crop diversification, what we lacked in terms of nutrition. If climate change is going to be a kind of distressing thing that we really predict upon, then how we are going to change our policies around agriculture is an issue. So the entire centering around the basic policies will determine on the crops which would use less water. So in comparison to rice, cotton, sugarcane, if you look at all other crops, hardly they need 300 to 400 millimeters of water to complete their life cycle. So that's where, not that you will replace it, but you can complement along with wheat and rice, putting together in a small niche so that you have food available for your nutrition requirement. Second is the environmental friendliness of these crops if you put together in terms of cost of cultivation put together. All these millets, pearl millet, jawar, bajra, and all other millets put together, they have a less cost of cultivation and the productivity levels in a better niches are very, very high. And second is the ease of cultivation would be much, much better. Only thing is need to be working with farmers group, farmer producer organizations, self-help groups, so that we mainstream these crops in agricultural sector. In the climate change scenario, whether it is drought, flood, or change in the ecosystems of photoperiod, I think these are the crops that would stand to the last mile. That is what is shown here. Then second is the simulated experiment with elevated carbon dioxides within the production systems has indicated that in the greenhouse gas emissions and the elevated carbon dioxide temperature, rice and wheat nutrition dense system within the grain decreases with the elevated carbon dioxide, but it doesn't get affected with the millets basically. So that is what is the one important aspect we need to be looking at. So all the things put together, in each of the state, different crops have different niches, and we need to be looking at their cultivation practices and mainstreaming them depending on the requirement in relation to crops already existing in your particular area. The second aspect apart from grain is also the fodder and forage requirement. If we really map the entire country, more than 11 states are totally deficit in terms of forage. But all the millets are nutrition rich for fodder and forage. That's where the kind of mainstreaming also needs to happen looking at the fodder requirement in different states. So whether it is a dry and fresh fodder or the green fodder, situation is very, very alarming. Probably we need to be looking at these particular things in the changing scenario. Then coming to the mid part of my analysis, the green revolution created huge buffer stocks. Wonderful. We have all food, but we have a problem of distribution. Number two, we have crops which need to be sustaining when the climate change scenario happens, but we push them back to the background. So that's how the policies around the pulses, the oilseeds, and the millets, they have been brought to the fore by the government. That's how the second green revolution in dryland needs to happen. Because our agriculture is 67% is dryland still. So we need to have mainstreaming of better crops, policy support, incentivization, hand-holding of farmer next 5 to 10 years, probably that is where it needs to happen. So that's where I was showing in the beginning the graphs. So we have area less than 50%, 60%, but we have increased production like more than 259% in terms of productivity. It shows that we don't need more lands, but productive hybrids, productive package of practices, productive seeds probably would change the scenario in terms of the land requirement and land usage, so that the cropping intensities will be increased further. So we are looking at how we can mainstream them, because for these crops, value addition, strengthening the value chain becomes an important aspect. Therefore, we are looking at total plant utilization, whether it is in sorghum, pearl millet, both for grain and fodder, then for silage. Then again, for the small millets, basically, again the fodder in their dishes, but again the productivity increases and the better seeds. So I'm not going into the future research trust. You can go through, probably it is very important for the Eastern region, how you can link with the crop improvement programs in sorghum, in pearl millet, in small millets with Indian Institute of Millet Research or the ICAR-RCER on them, so that certain level of developments that has happened could be taken further, so that the mainstreaming can happen through your programs. So that's what the total gamut of action around the research is happening here. Now coming to the last but one section of my presentation. What is driving millets today? So we talked about quinoa earlier, we talked about chia, we talked about many superfoods. So it's not the superfood basically, but it is what is giving the benefit in terms of nutrition we are looking at. So in terms of the health benefit, which we have already seen, the health and wellness industry would like to have alternate grains, supporting the total ecosystem of both domestic requirement and also the export requirements. The second aspect, what would drive this growth of these particular grains, is the growing middle class. So when we are expecting to exceed 1 billion households of middle class by 2023, it is going to grow proportionately. So that is where the health and wellness ecosystem of foundation, which has been analyzed and surveyed, that it would drive the requirement of the grains per se. And third is how we are going to meet the global requirement. We have seen the Ukraine war and the total food crisis in terms of the supply chains that were hampered totally. It calls for looking at the global scenario, what we can strengthen. One is some continents have high areas which need to be brought into agriculture. In certain continents, we need to increase the per day productivity in each of these crops. In certain continents, we need crops that would respond to the changes in the climate that is happening. And finally, how we can integrate together in terms of supply chains. So that is what is the global food security and nutrition security would depend upon. So we have calculated, tried to calculate for PMO, what would be the total requirement of the grains, what is the total market, whether it is the grain market and all. I'm not going into the analysis of these things, leaving slides for you to look at. So entire things put together, what would be the seed requirement? And there are no seed companies which are producing seeds. There are hardly local companies which cater to the requirement. We are not penetrating in terms of seed requirement the dryland areas. That is where the efforts also need to happen. So what kind of incentivization for seed companies also need to come. Then exports, if we analyze, we are the leading producer. There is a huge demand for these markets, and almost entire thing put together, the growth is between 13 to 30% in the next 5 to 6 years. That is what they say, and that is what is the analysis that has been done. So I am again not going into the details of the exports. And we have analyzed for each of the countries what would be the, whether it is Asia Pacific or Middle East or Africa or European clusters or entire thing put together. The total analysis has been done and submitted to the PMO, so that accordingly APIDA, FSSAI with the FPOs, there is a platform that is getting generated to see that good agricultural practices in liaison with the import requirement of different countries are going to happen. That is what is really being looked into. So these are the existing markets, the potential markets, the entire plan has been put together. So export trends basically are gluten-free grains. Number two is for the ready-to-eat, ready-to-cook and convenience foods. Third is for the organic products. Millets are basically organic, not much input usage, basically. And fourth is health and wellness, wherein we are really trying to key in the things for the nutrition sector. So total value of millets together, put together in India is 1,27,320 crores. That is what is the total market value as it stands today, which is going to grow by 32%, what they say, between 2025 to 2030. So also the estimates, how you are going to meet the demand. We are intending that about another 4 million hectares need to be added in terms of acreage. We need to be producing another 8 to 9 million tons more to cater to the growing domestic and as well as the export demands. That's how looking at the wastelands available, the dryland agricultural policies that need to happen in different states. All these things have been put together, a kind of matrix has been submitted. So in the last chapter, in the last part of my presentation, the next 5 minutes would be how you can mainstream the grains which are not known to anybody. You need to create the food, kind of food available in the market, ready to eat, ready to cook, processed foods, like rice and wheat in the super shelves of the market. Then only then the uptake will happen. So in Indian Institute of Millet Research, we have an incubation center called as the NutriHub. We established it 7 years ago and created about 700 startups today. And I will show you the impact later. So created around 130 plus products licensed to the companies producing both the sold domestically and the export market. So from weaning foods to geriatric foods to the convenience foods, from the traditional to the modern, the forms have been given, whether from cookies to vermicelli to pasta to the flakes. You name it, everything has been created. So recipe books have been created in the awareness creation programs and ready to just put it in hot water. You have your dalia or upma or khichdi, they are ready. You find it indigo and all. They are serving today. So these are all the technologies that were developed in the last 8 to 10 years. Then the flakes, what we know about the flake is only the corn flake, but we have flakes from all the 9 millets. So diversification of food can happen in this way. Eat one flake a day. Then in terms of rice, we know only the paddy rice, but all these small millets from Bodo to Kutki to Foxtail, Little Proso, they are all like rice-like. You need to remove the husk and when you cook it, you have the rice. So that's how diversification of eating the rice can also happen with the dietary fiber embedded. So that's how from rotis to anything you name it, you have the entire systems. So awareness programs were created with the vehicles that went around, the parks to the hospitals to everything. Then the recipes were created, the chefs of different hotels were brought in. So you go to any 5-star hotel today, at least 1 or 2 minute recipe dishes in the healthy sector food you would find it. So about 18 different programs for the chefs we did with 5-star, 3-star and all the even ordinary roadside vendors or food caterers. We did the training programs. That's how we could see the ecosystem that has developed. And we created facilities for the startups to use. About 130 crore was invested, brought from different organizations, including Government of India, creating machineries which startups can use because they don't have the machinery in the beginning. So we have machineries, otherwise rental charges have been developed. They can manufacture their this thing and go ahead with the entire this thing. So entire ecosystem of food what we eat, rice and wheat is created with the what you call the millets put together. So these are all the different flakes via what I was talking about. Just like Makana, you have the puffs from different millets as a snacks that have been developed. So range of things. So what I would like to say is this was a moment which we really led from the front, and value chain was strengthened all from farmer to the food industry to the APIDA. It has been linked now. And I think next 5 years would be the watershed area, basically how millets could get mainstreamed into this. So at the end of the day, what we really should be looking at is the entire crop improvement program should look at the total plant utilization. One is we are looking at the biofuels, wherein the first generation biofuels using sweet stalk sorghums and its juice like sugarcane, basically. Then the bringing it to better niche area, just like in Bihar, rice furrows, we are getting about 6.5 to 7 tons. So from the lesser area, still we can produce more. We don't need to have more and more area that is coming into picture. Then the profitability from the biofuel, because almost 30 rupees per liter of ethanol produced is the profitability to the farmer here. Then the high biomass sorghums, both for even in pearl millet, both for silage and also as well as the second generation biofuel. That is what is being mainstream. Then quality of the forage in terms of introducing the BMR genes, the lignin content is reduced, and that's where the palatability increased. And also we could find methane emissions from the cow dung are lesser, body weight increases, and the meal yields are higher. Machineries we work about so that the de-husking becomes very, very important. And the range of publications were created to tell people what kind of things need to be looked at, including from heritage up to the modern days. So all the things put together, the incubation becomes important. Institutions, not only R&D per se, but probably developmental efforts with our FPO programs, our SCSP programs, probably Ranup Das, I would request your SCSP programs and the Farmers First program. Create a cluster, invest in small machineries, 10 to 15 lakhs, then showcase that you can create the primary processing and the secondary processing, basically whether it is the atta or suji or semolina. This is the first stage. If we can do, we can show it and showcase. I think that's how the kind of catapulting in terms of applications can happen. And I think maybe next 1 or 2 years, I have talked to Rakesh, I will link our scientists to them so that they will be able to replicate this particular thing. So this is our institute basically, and just strengthening the value chain has been our basic strength, and kick started since 2000 as soon as the International Year of Millets was organized, and that's how the total programs have been initiated. And this year you will see the range of programs that are going to happen. So this is what is the impact: reaching consumers, reaching the stakeholders, creating the startups in terms of the profitability. That has been the total impact of the institution in the last years what we have created. And we could get the Best Institute Award in 2015. And also we were recognized. We were recognized basically for our efforts in mainstreaming the millets in different institutions, and that's where the ask those slides. Okay, so can you go to the please last 4 slides. Go to the okay, so in this effort, we could get recognized through different state governments, Best Institute, Best ICAR-RCER system. Then the Prime Minister now he is leading the campaign, and nothing stopping that particular thing. So we hope in the next 5 years we will have a best ecosystem created, and that's what I would like to finish it. I'm leaving the slides. You can read through not much information. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving such a marvelous foundation lecture. We are really obliged to you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. As we all know that millets are nutri-cereals, and this year we are observing International Year of Millets, and its main aim is to create awareness and increase production as well as consumption of millets. And by delivering this lecture, मैं अगर ये कहूँ कि गागर में सागर सर ने काम किया है, यानी कि इतने कम समय में इतनी सारी बातें हमें बताई हैं. Sir, thank you so much. And now I would request Dr. Ujjwal Kumar sir, our organizing secretary, to please welcome Director Atari Dr. Anjali Kumar sir in this auspicious. Please, sir. You are most welcome, sir. Thank you, sir. Before requesting our most honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. V.S. Mahapatra sir for his inspirational speech, I would like to just introduce him. Even he didn't need any introduction, but
Thank you, and it is a fantastic learning for me. I will say it's a learning for me. I'm already retired from Pantnagar, and now I am as a vice chancellor for very few days, few months, I don't know. But I hail from the area where the millets used to be grown in Chota Purulia. These are the Purulia, Ranchi, these areas. Millets used to be grown. Even in our fields also, I've seen the millets are growing. Now, where I am nurtured for around 42 years in the state of Uttarakhand, UP and Uttarakhand, the hill was totally full of various millets and small grain crops. The lecture happened to be very much informative, and it gives a wide diversity in total reality what is going on in the country today and what we are looking for. One of my major thinking, being an agronomist, that all of us have studied crop geography, crop adaptation, distribution in our university days, and that gives a glimpse of the every crops where it can be grown. Just for example, if we talk that wheat is being harvested throughout the year in some part of the world, so that defines the crop geography and the distribution of the wheat throughout the world. Similarly, when we talk about the millets, it has got its own niche areas. Now, somehow, due to demand of the producing food grains or increasing population, the way rice and wheat would cope up with the food security requirement, and most attention was paid towards that. And rice and wheat basically was a crop which are intensively studied worldwide, particularly if we talk about wheat and talk about rice. Then millets are generally the crops of the African region and the drier tracts of the world. So that was never paid huge attention. Now, so far our country is concerned, these crops today had a special attention and will be taking a new place in coming days. Why? Now we have seen what is happening in case of Punjab growing rice, or Haryana growing rice, or Western UP growing rice, of what is happening to soil and environmental condition and the climatic condition of those areas. Punjab was never a rice growing area, but due to the demand of growing food crops, the rice and the fertilizer availability, the rabi beans, water availability, then hybrid varieties, and the major thrust, the at minimum support price. My friend, he hailed from Bihar, Bhagalpur area. He was in KVK. He had extensive, Dr. Shekhar is his name. He has extensive knowledge about it, extensive activities, and this market survey and all. वो क्या कहते थे कि पंजाब में तो पानी का पैसा भी ले लेते हैं किसान केमिस्ट्री का नाम. So that is the guarantee the farmers do have. Now, where our farmers, the millet farmers or other farmers does have the guarantee for food is today? Why it becomes decreasing and decreasing in your total area and production? Production might not have decreased, but area has decreased. Now, the health security, nutrition security, what it goes through the slides and from the lecture of Dr. Vilas, it is highly informative, and the country, the way it's adding, it has got a positive place in our stable food, because we need to keep. Because if you look into the big cities, obesity is a major problem. Then the strength of the newly grown children, we find, is very little. Their strength in respect to continue with some work or in sports and other activities, that is minimum. We can see all. So why? Because we are not supplemented with the food, energy, and minerals and vitamins which are required. We need to understand. We have done enough in our food circle, but it is our responsibility in totality how to better nourish the future generation, because they are our future. So there you have already highlighted, and the major planning will be coming through the government, central level and state level. And my thinking is that for any crop, we need to find it out the niche areas. Now, being in the agriculture system in the university and also assuming the ICAR in the past, now in many RSCs and other things, we got a tendency to take every crop to every place. But what is the need of taking every crop to every place? Because they are not going to do the best. If I can talk better in Hindi, why should I talk in Hindi or other language? But if I don't follow that, then I am going to finish. Similarly, that attention need to be given. The crop geography is well distributed throughout the country, and today's context, the water is the minimum, major crisis, and the way it is decreasing, the base water, it will be concerned to all Indians in particular. Now, millets have got a huge place in cultivating those areas where water is in scarcity and this changing climatic scenario, the nutritional requirement. And most of the millet crops, when I have gone through, because I have worked extensively in Uttarakhand hills, and not many millets I have found, those are hugely sensitive to disease and pests. They are very hardy towards disease and pests. So they got their own immunity in the system, and that natural cycle, those can bring immunity our immune system for disease and other things. So we need to think in that way, because the more you work, more you get exposed, and your lecture is very much informative, Vilasji, and hopefully, as you, Dr. Anup, you are the director of Eastern region. You got this is a NRM institute. You got a major responsibility to take care of the eastern part of the country, particularly Chottam, Plateau, Odisha, and other areas where millet can be given a huge trust. Because as Punjab can grow rice, why the millet areas cannot grow millets which are originally of those areas? We need to respect a particular crop, a particular person in his own place. Then only he will realize or the crop will be elevated to its maximum. So with this, I think it was highly informative. I learned many things from you. I've seen all the millets, the way the intercropping is being done, crop diversity is being followed in hills. So their marginal is there, marginality is there in respect to production. But they are very important. And the why millets are being very available in Northeast, in Uttarakhand, in Himachal, in Jammu Kashmir, because that gives energy, mineral, vitamins to protect them from extreme climatic conditions. So in this, I thank you for the beautiful lecture given and informative to us. And we have also learned many things, particularly myself, after going through many times. I don't get opportunity to learn many things these days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Maybe because we are getting late, maybe one or two questions maximum, sir. Maximum two questions. Maximum two questions. Please, if anybody is having only two questions related to how we can take it to the farmer's field or how we can include in our research program.
So regarding production and all aspect, that is not a big challenge. Regarding processing and still we are facing here that even our hard worker, they are not aware about how to harvesting even dressing. So awareness and processing. Institute and other from other institute we can provide, then it will go in our farming system. This is a major issue. Production is very bumper. Even summer we used to harvest more than 5 tons from sorghum, and during without giving water we used to harvest even really more than 2 tons. That is the processing, and another important that is that the food system this crop is not there. So awareness and processing is much better.
Yeah, that's what I told this thing, that Institute of needs to work also with the farming clusters. Because we have programs which we can invest small amounts of money and showcase that replication happens when people see the successful story. So in the last 10 years, work with the millets, we have had programs एक कौन खाएगा, अगर अभी से खाना शुरू हो गया है, so it is the slow process, changing the system. Machineries were not there, now we have good machineries available. So all these things, when people see there is a marketing opportunity, profitability will be made, and it is a demand generating scenario where awareness you create. All this ecosystem creates a push for enhancing area, then the farmers' interest in these particular crops. So if you start today, maybe 5 years down the line, you could be successful by 10%, 15%. I think that is a good enough effort that has gone. So that is where we need to have patience. Mainstreaming alternate crops not easy because they have their own embedded problems. Processing machineries were not there. They have to be brought in. People to be told how to cultivate, how to eat, what kind of recipes they can make. All these things are there. So entire thing, maybe in your program next 2 years, if you can showcase a small this thing, bring people again and again, bring policy makers, bring the people in the government. They are very, very important. We can talk a lot of things, but people in the government can help. What I did in my institute in 10 years was, I think every chief secretary of different institute or program of government of India, I brought them to the institute to show, even if they are not interested, bring them there. At least some kind of sensitization somewhere, it will really flare up and things would happen. So that is very important. Institution should get the policymakers to visit you, tell them whether they are interested or not, but somewhere it will go. So that is what is my experience. I think we should go on trying. But your work in the field, if you can showcase this processing, both primary and also the secondary processing at the initial level, you would have a better ecosystem getting. Thank you.
I just want to add one thing, just for your information. For the marketing, the most important parameter is market equality. I give one example. All of us go to restaurants. We are going. We used to have naans or your tandoori and all. Now, when we are going to a big restaurant, every piece of tandoori may cost you 25, 20 or 20 rupees. So 1 kilo of atta is going to produce around 20-25 of tandoors. What is the cost of that 25 tandoors if it is costing 25 rupees? 625 rupees. What the farmer is getting? 22 rupees. So the policymaker need to bring that parity. See, the person who is producing, he must also get some share of the percentage of the profit. Now, many of us go to malls. And we ourselves, including our spouses and kids, are very much interested in taking cookies. And most of the cookies they use these millets. And the cost of cookies are whatnot. But we are ready to pay for that. But the farmer is going to get only 15 rupees or 16 rupees per kilogram of the millet. So all those policymakers can intervene and bring a teaching of the things. Then only our farmers are going to, the upliftment of the farmers are going to take place, and everything is going to be popular in farmers' field conditions.
Sir, you have done some very good work actually in Eastern region. To FPO we can or startup we can do a lot of work. What are your experience in mobilizing that FPOs and startups? What process we have followed?
See, now government has a program for creation of FPOs. Every Department of Agriculture with Secretary of Agriculture. Each district has certain programs. They have funds for creating FPOs. Institutions can also be a facilitator. So, as an institute, we have created now 43 FPOs in 8 different states. So that can happen. You start with your own region, 1 or 2 successful experiences. What happens is when FPOs get created, they get a collective bargaining strength. One is the collective production, farm gate processing like the machinery, and they need not have to sell it to somebody. They can pack themselves and brand themselves. So if the branding can happen at the FPO level, that is where he gets at least 30% more price than what he could sell to a middleman. So that is where the strength of the farmer needs to increase. Number 2, apart from grain, as sir said, add value at the farm gate itself, whether you sell atta or suji or anything. Small machineries try to create a healthy food forms for them. So it will be another way of. So as an institute in this particular region, there are programs available for FPOs that one can try with outreach and extension programs and also the economic. Number 2, under the startup ecosystem, under Ministry of Food Processing, you can apply for the incubation center here, where FPO incubation can happen. There are 2 funds that get given under the RKVY RFTAR program. One is called as the N-Grain, another is the NEST. In the N-Grain, any basic entrepreneurship, not necessarily millets, you have concoction of crops and value addition around them. Then initial entrepreneurs, they get 5 lakh rupees per head to start their program. Then another is the already existing startups who would like to expand with new novel products. They get 20 lakh rupees. So like this, in the last 8 years, we have created 700 plus startups. So that is where the institution, maybe we can apply in some Ministry of Agriculture, Government of India, and also food processing. One incubation center should happen here, so that you can bring so many states you are dealing with. Probably that is the other way we can look at it.
Now, we have reached at the end of this session of this listening distribution program, this first session. So, first and foremost, I would like to thank our chief guest, BCKB, who despite his busy schedule found time to grace this occasion. And sir, you have given your inspirational thought to motivate us. Thanks a lot, sir. My heartfelt thanks to our guest of honor, Dr. ICAR-RCER, for delivering such a marvelous and informative lecture. And sir, we are really very much thankful to you, sir. I extend my thanks to Director NRCPG, Dr. Vikas, and Director Attorney, Dr. Anjali Kumar, sir, for your presence. I express my gratitude to our Director, Dr. Anita, sir, and all HODs for their painstaking efforts to make this program successful. I thanks all my colleagues from Patna, Ranchi, Darbhanga, Buxar, Ramgarh, and last but not least, thanks to all staffs and members who make this program a big success. Thanks to all, sir. Thank you very much. अब हमारी जो नेक्स्ट प्रोग्राम होगा, जो अगला कार्यक्रम है वो 11 बजे से है और वहाँ पे फील्ड में वहाँ पे एकत्रित होना है। प्लीज आप लोग वहाँ पे आए।
ये